Ever lost a project because your energy audit didn't convince decision makers? Imagine delivering energy audits that always get implemented and transform the future of a building or manufacturing process. If you work in energy efficiency, you know an energy audit is more than just checking lights and insulation. But what separates a basic energy audit from a true investment grade energy audit? Why do some energy audits secure massive funding while others gather dust? By the end, you'll know what makes an audit investment grade, see real-world examples, and learn how the Investment Grade Energy Auditor, IGEA, certification gives your work real impact. What is an Investment Grade Energy Audit? Everything you need to know. And this video is for energy advisors, consultants, facility managers, building engineers, and everyone serious about energy efficiency in existing facilities for commercial, industrial, or government buildings. So what is an energy audit? An energy audit is a systematic inspection, survey, analysis of energy flows within a building, facility, or a process to identify ways of reducing energy consumption and to present a business case for investments to reduce energy usage. The purpose is to reveal savings opportunities, cut greenhouse gas emissions, improve operational efficiency, and support sustainability and carbon reduction goals. Now let's look at the types of audit. Let's start with a walkthrough audit, which is called a level 1 audit, or in Australia and New Zealand would be called a type 1 audit. This is a quick, less expensive audit. You spot obvious wastage and describe how to fix it. It lacks detailed savings analysis, but it's a great intro and often a very good starting point for organisations that have no prior experience with energy audits and just want to get a quick idea of the potential savings that could be achieved. A detailed diagnostic audit or a level 2 audit, or in Australia and New Zealand it's called a type 2 audit. This involves collecting more data, doing deeper calculations, being more accurate in the estimates of costs and benefits, and development of a reasonably sound business case. Then there's an investment grade audit, which would be called a level 3 audit in many parts of the world. In Australia and New Zealand, it would be an investment grade type 2 energy audit. This is a rigorous, financially defensible analysis. It's used for major upgrades, guaranteed savings projects, and in particular for energy performance contracts where an energy services company guarantees savings. It may also be used where you need to get external finance and you really want to be sure of the business case that's put forward. Why does it matter? It's because a rigorously performed audit provides assurance for funding. It ensures projects are implemented, not forgotten, and it reduces client risk. As the US Department of Energy describes, audits are the foundation for any impactful energy improvement in existing facilities. So for decision makers, only an investment grade audit can secure the capital and executive buy-in needed to get big things done. Now let's look at the key components and steps involved in delivering an investment grade energy. So what elevates a standard audit to an investment grade audit? The answer to this is not just in how the audit is undertaken. It also includes the initial scoping of the audit and also goes through to the follow-up after the audit is delivered. So here's just your 3-point simple checklist. Firstly, and incredibly important, build a crystal clear scope for the audit. Work with the client, the energy user, to get clarity about exactly what they want to achieve, what financing they have for implementation of the audit, what access to financing making in order to implement the audit's recommendations, and how they intend to project manage those recommendations that the energy audit will present. You need to describe that the upgrades won't necessarily be trivial, they could be quite disruptive and require quite a lot of money. So you need to ensure that the decision makers are on board with this and they know exactly what they want to achieve, they're willing to invest, they're clear about their expectations about how much they're willing to invest and their time frame, and they're also very clear about why they want the audit done. Now, starting with this end in mind, the end in mind being we've achieved the energy savings and this is what we have to do to get there, forces all parties to be realistic about what's in and out of scope. And in some cases, you may actually decide that a full comprehensive audit of the whole facility is not the best starting point. You may decide to start just on part of the facility. Or you may just initially start to, well, let's prove that this is going to work by only focusing on quick wins. The second part is to do the actual energy audit, but to make sure it's investment grade, substantiating any assumptions. It will add effort and time to the work that you need to do that. And it probably means that you're going to need to have to install additional metering or data logging or spend a lot more time analysing the data that's available. The aim is to have your estimates or calculations of the savings that can be achieved from each individual energy efficiency measure based on data and not on guesses. You know, with an energy audit, you're often time constrained and you've got to make many assumptions. With an investment grade energy audit, well, you've got to push for that extra time. So you're not making those assumptions, so you're more accurate. Second part of this is thinking through the implementation of the proposed measures in detail, so as to come up with a reasonably accurate estimate of the actual cost of the upgrades, which can be often higher than expected. And if you're forced to think through it all in step by step, you're not going to miss costs, which can actually blow budgets out. And finally, you need to look at the proposed measures through the risk lens of the client and partner and engage with the client in such a way that they are comfortable in proceeding through to implementation of what you're advising. You, of course, need to be speaking the language of the financial decision makers when presenting the recommended energy savings measures. The third point on this simple checklist is to follow through. Now, an energy audit is only as good as the actions it initiates. An energy audit is not good if it's incredibly accurate and everything is perfect. There's a lot of savings measures identified, but it doesn't get implemented. None of the energy efficiency measures put forward are implemented. If that happens to you, the audit is not a good audit. Even though it technically may be very good, it's actually not a good energy audit. Therefore, you need to follow through after the audit to ensure that what is recommended gets implemented. Now, if you didn't do the preparatory work well right at the start, when scoping the audit, you'll find that getting the proposed energy efficiency measures implemented a lot harder if you haven't kind of prepared the ground beforehand, before you actually got in and identified what the energy savings measures were. So even the best audit fails if it doesn't resonate with decision makers. Always tailor your output from the very start for the audience. That can be the C-suite, facilities, or finance, or all three of them. Now let's just look and compare investment grade energy audits versus other audits. And let's clarify how investment grade audit stands apart from standard approaches. So firstly, if we look at a walkthrough or a level 1 or type 1 any home energy audit, it's kind of like a basic or visual survey. The financial analysis is kind of more based on rules of thumb rather than specific measures. And who needs it? Well, it's good for low complexity projects. And there's kind of a scoping study for an investment grade energy audit, just to get a feel of what the potential might be. I often recommend that for organisations that don't have experience in energy auditing, perhaps you propose, don't just jump straight into the investment grade energy, perhaps you propose a walkthrough initially, and they'll pay you a bit of money, but just so they get a bit of a feel for what the potential might be, and it helps them also refine and get clearer about the scope of what they would want from an investment grade energy audit. Then we have the standard commercial or industrial type energy audit, which should be reasonably depth, moderate depth. In Australia and New Zealand, we refer to the type 2 type audit as being to a medium level of accuracy. The financial analysis needs to be pretty comprehensive. In Australia and New Zealand, our type 2 audit, however, doesn't require additional monitoring, additional data loggers, is not a requirement of a type 2 in order to perhaps eliminate some of the uncertainty around some of those assumptions. So there's still some assumptions in there. Where is it appropriate? It's appropriate perhaps for an organisation which is comfortable perhaps with perhaps a little ambiguity about the costs and benefits. Maybe they're really, really keen just to implement energy efficiency upgrades and they're going to do it anyway. That's a pretty rare client. So that's whom it's suited to. But on the other hand, if they need quite a tight, very tight business case, perhaps a type 2 is not appropriate. And then the investment type grade energy audit, this is the last one that we're going to cover. It's the most comprehensive audit. It's a comprehensive engineering grade facility study. And the financial analysis will look at the return on investment and present various financial metrics like the internal rate of return, the net present value, and so on. And it's well suited to larger commercial industrial facilities where government facilities, it's particularly suited to where there's a definite and strong intent to move forward, but they need a strong business case in order to do so. And that's what an investment grade energy audit will deliver. So bottom line, walkthrough audits are great for spotting savings and perhaps getting initial buy-in, but only an investment grade energy audit withstands the external scrutiny that banks, investors and C-level leaders might put on an energy audit. Now, let's look at some common challenges and solutions. Well, and this involves the fact that so many energy audits actually fail to drive implementation. Here's some of the most common pitfalls and some suggested expert solutions. Firstly, challenge is that the client isn't fully committed to implementing the advice that we provided. This is a key challenge, and they may not state this. You may have to infer this by how you engage with them, because clients may be not willing to admit that they may not be going to afford to implement it. So from the start, the solution to this is from the start, work back from the desired outcomes and the available resources. And from the start, also make sure that the decision makers know, the mind of the decision makers in the organization is clear. Sometimes you're dealing with a lower level person in the organization, not with the decision maker. And that's bad. You really want to be clear from the start that the decision maker is aware of the audit and is allocating the resources available for implementation, that they're serious about it, basically. So this needs to be really clear in the mind of all parties. Another challenge then is inaccurate data or incomplete baselines. And this is a common problem. You've got incomplete data. So how do you solve this problem? Well, you've just got to be quite insistent about the client supplying the data. And sometimes data's hidden. It might mean a little bit more extra effort on their part. It may involve you extending the time required for the audit to install additional data logging and being able to build a better understanding of the building. Now, particularly if there's poor data and the climate is highly seasonal, you really want to be making sure that you've got a good data set that captures the coldest season and the hottest season, particularly for a commercial building. So you need to be really pushing for data, investigating the site in a lot of detail, and often you can uncover things in the building management system or otherwise, which may be useful. And you can use robust data logging for systems as well. Another challenge then is poor financial analysis skills. This includes the skills around estimating the cost of the upgrades as well as the accuracy in calculating the savings, which can be complicated when there's complex tariffs in play. So decision makers want confidence that your models are robust and conservative. So don't just rely on simple payback. And as I said earlier, you've got to think through all those costs and also be minimizing assumptions, trying not to have any major assumptions at all in your business case. Another challenge is generic or unactionable reports. And often this is the case where the budget is inadequate for the investment grade energy audit. And you may be promising something, but your budget just isn't good enough for you to do a good job. So you need to be pushing from the start for a decent budget. And don't just provide a generic report, but it can be quite embarrassing if you've got another building name or another client's name in that report because you've just copied and pasted from another report that you've done. So you need to use specific prioritized recommendations for that site. Take clear to really look at risk mitigation and have the conversation about this before you present the report. Look at a clear implementation schedule that aligns with their available funding. And then finally, this kind of reflects the initial challenges that the client actually doesn't understand the opportunity that you're presenting. And this can be the case, particularly if you're quite technical in background and you're not speaking the language that the decision makers understand. So you need to present the findings in a language that is specific to the client's goals, whether they're cost savings, compliance, corporate sustainability, or risk management. And you need to speak the language of finance because typically major savings require major investment. So if you want to avoid these mistakes and build credibility as an energy auditor, the Investment Grade Energy Auditor, IGEA certification, was designed specifically to address these industry pain points. So if your next energy audit, if you want that, whether that's going to be for your local library or complex hospital, to secure real funding and drive action, you need investment grade energy auditing skills. Now, unlike short courses that exist out there or basic credentials, the IGEA certification is built to prove that you can deliver reports that make things happen and reduce risk for clients. You'll get hands-on practical experience in doing the IGEA certification. You'll gain recognized job-ready certifications, and you're going to get extensive feedback, and you'll be assessed on a real energy audit. So don't let your next energy audit just land in the nice-to-have pile and end up gathering dust. Stand out, protect your clients' investments, and secure your own future. Start your investment grade energy audit certification courses, free lessons today by clicking on the link below this video. Thanks.